first, we will move towards question number 1. The question number 1 says, what is meant by the term sportsmanship? What is the role of ethics in sports? And the recent scams in sports regarding substance abuse, ball tampering, fake fouls, and so on display that ends have become more important than the means. Comment. So let's start with the question. First, we have to write the introduction part. Then we will move to body and then conclusion. In the introduction part, we will give the definition of what is meant by sportsmanship. Sportsmanship is a feeling that healthy competition will lead to the development of character, will lead to honor and virtue. It promotes the victory with honor by giving one's best effort. In sportsmanship, means are as important as the ends. So, there is one concept here which is important. Sportsmanship is different from gamemanship. Gamemanship involves that winning is everything and the ends justify the means. But sportsmanship has a larger role to play in the society. Now, let's move to the body part, which says that what is the role of ethics in sport. So, sportsmanship has few important parameters based on ethical considerations. For example, fairness, integrity, responsibility, and respect. These are the important factors of sportsmanship. Fairness means that everybody should provided with an equal playing ground, and there should not be a preference given to some team. Integrity means that the player follows the rule and play by the rules even when nobody is watching. For example, Lance Armstrong, which was the famous cyclist, and he was using banned substances for a long number of years. But when we came to know about it, he got disgraced. Then responsibility. Responsibility is an important factor of sportsmanship, and it says that the player has to take the responsibility of their own performance, of their own actions, and of their own knowledge. I will go into details of each and every point. For the first is, the sportsman has to take the responsibility for the performance. It means that if the team lost or the performance was not good, then instead of giving excuses, the sportsman or the team should take responsibility of the poor performance, should identify the areas which have led to this kind of poor performance, and should work towards improving their performance in the future rather than giving just excuses. Their own actions, for example, whatever the sportsmen do on or off the field, they must take the responsibility for their own actions. For example, in the recent World Cup, Football World Cup, Neymar was faking a foul, and all the fans got to know that he was faking a foul. So he has to take the responsibility for his actions. And in the recent case of the Australian cricket team involved in the ball tampering, Cameron Bancroft was caught in the television camera trying to rough the one side of the ball. And it was later found that Captain Steve Smith and Vice Captain David Warne was also admitted that the plan was made during the lunch break. So they have to take responsibility for their action. And for the next part of sportsmanship is that the player has to take the responsibility for their own knowledge. For example, Maria Sharapova was taking meldonium for 10 years, but it was banned in 2016. But she continued to take it, giving the reason that she has a medical condition and that she was not aware that the substance was banned. So, she is playing at an international level and therefore she has to take the responsibility for updating her own knowledge about the field and the rules. And now let's move on to the fourth and most important point of the sportsmanship, that is respect. The players have the responsibility to show respect for the game, respect for the team, for the opponents, and most importantly, respect for the fans. If a sportsman is faking a foul or breaking a rule on the field, it might be possible that the referee is not able to see that, but the fans will come to know about it sooner or later, and then the sportsman will have a bad reputation. So, it is important that the sportsman respect the field, the game, and the rules. Now, there is a concept in ethics which says that the dimension of sports is outside the dimension of ethics. That is called bracketed morality. And it says that ethics does not apply to sports. It says that in sports, the only virtue is winning and the only vice is losing. But the concept of bracketed morality is flawed, because ethics is the understanding of what is right and what is wrong. So, whenever there is a choice to be made and the moral actor has uh, options in front of him and he has to make a choice, then ethics will come into play. So, it cannot be said that bracketed morality does not apply to sports. Now, moving to the conclusion part, we can we may end the question by writing something about the sports and the role it plays in the society. As conclusion is very subjective, you can also write some other conclusion that you feel is more suitable to the answer you have written above. For this particular question, I suggest one conclusion that sports have a deeper significance to play in the society. They are not just about winning and losing, they are about building of character. They help the entire community to build a moral character. For example, there are many players, for example, like Sachin Tendulkar, Rahul Dravid, who have inspired people from the kind of attitude they have shown on and off the field. So, the sports has a deeper significance in the society. It also is a means for inspiration for the young children, especially for the young children. So, if a sportsman shows ethical conduct on the field, then the young children will also be inspired to do the same. There is one interesting example that I would like to share. This Derek Redmond was was an athlete in the 1992 Olympics. He was running the 400 meters and his hamstring snapped during the initial part of the race. But he completed the race despite the large amount of pain that he was suffering from. He was not able to win a medal, but he was able to inspire future generations for the kind of hard work and endurance that he showed on the field. So I hope that this would have given you an idea of how to approach this question and how to include ethical angles into this question. The important point is that you have to write some ethical keywords and some ethical concepts, and you have to substantiate your answer with some examples. Now, moving on to question number 2. Question number 2 asks, what is the difference between ethics and morality? Are there cases when the two are proposing contradictory solutions to the same problem? Elucidate with examples. So, in this question, we can start by giving the introduction. We can start by introducing the concepts of ethics and morality and how these two play an important role in helping the society and the individual decide what is right and what is wrong. As introduction is very subjective, you can start with any of the introduction you feel like, but it is better you can start with the importance that ethics and morality play in the society. Now, coming to the body part, we in the body we highlight the difference between ethics and morality. Ethics. Ethics comes from the Greek word ethos, which means the characteristic spirit of a society, of a culture. And while morality, it comes from the Latin word mos, which means custom. Therefore, ethics is about other people. It is about the society. It is applicable in the public sphere. For example, blowing of traffic horn when there is no traffic on the highway, or blowing of horns in the vicinity of a society is equivalent to disturbing their peace. This is ethically not acceptable. Ethics are also externally imposed by the culture, by the society, or by the institutions. For example, the society tells us what is right and what is wrong. So, this is ethics. On the other hand, morality. Morality is applicable in the personal sphere. It is based on what one personally considers to be right and wrong. For example, a vegetarian may feel that it is not right for eat meat. So he may morally feel that it is a moral wrong to eat meat. But ethically, it may be a different position for the society. So, and morals are also internally imposed. They are the belief systems which we develop throughout our upbringing or based on what our socialization. So, the next part of the question asks, are there cases when the two are proposing contradictory solution to the same problem? And we have to elucidate it with examples. So, for example, now we can list down cases where ethics and morality propose different solutions. For example, in case of legal ethics, a lawyer, if a lawyer is defending a client in the court and he knows that the client has committed the murder or is guilty of the crime, then his personal morality might say that he should not defend the client and let the client suffer the prosecution. But the legal ethics, the professional ethics, they demand that the lawyer defends the client to the best of his ability. Similarly, in medical ethics, suppose a patient is brought in front of the doctor and the doctor comes to know that the patient is a terrorist who has killed a large number of people. So, his personal morality might say that he should not save the terrorist, but the medical ethics, the Hippocratic oath that the doctors have taken, it says that the doctor has to save any patient that comes in front of him or her. Similarly, workplace ethics. Workplace ethics demand that an employee gives the most amount of time and energy towards his professional work so that it is good for the organization. But on the other hand, there might be some moral commitments of the person, of the employee. The employee must be having a family, so the moral commitment might say that he or she has to devote some equal amount of time to the family also. Similarly, in case of homosexuality, some people might feel that it is morally wrong to indulge in such kind of activities. But they might also feel at the same time that it is unethical to discriminate against homosexuals solely based on their sexual orientation. So, these are the things when morality and ethics they provide different solutions, different paths to the same problem. Our history is filled with such examples in which things which were considered ethically correct at that time were felt to be morally wrong by some people and they protested against it. and then the morality of those individuals helped the society to change its understanding of what is right and what is wrong. So, in that case, the morality of the individual influenced the ethics of the society. For example, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Sati Pratha, the Widow Remarriage Act, and the temple entry movements. All these were because some people at some point of time felt that these practices were not morally correct, and their morals helped to change the ethics of the society. So, this is the difference between ethics and morality, and we have also shown in the cases where ethics and morality offer different paths to the same problem. Now, how to conclude this question? In conclusion, we can always say that the role of ethics and morality both are there in order to have a harmonious society, to have a harmonious living. They both aim towards a good life, towards providing a well-being of the society. So we have to keep on analyzing our own beliefs, and the society has to keep on analyzing its own beliefs, so that both ethics and morality, they come into consonance. We have to balance both views. For example, the lawyer has to understand that it is good for the entire society if he if he defends the convict, because in the future it might in the future, if some other convict comes and he is innocent, then he will get a fair chance in front of the justice system. So every person should get a fair chance in front of the justice system. So this is good for the entire society. Therefore, there has to be a balance and an analysis of what is the basic understanding, what is the reason because of which we feel what we feel. Sometimes the morality is not in consonance with the ethics, or the ethics is not as per the morality, because proper analysis, proper debate, discussion has not gone in understanding the reasons which are behind those morals or ethics. So, in order to resolve such a dilemma between ethics and morality, what we can do is we can always look for the higher values and choose the higher values, so that we can find out the solution. And we should always look for the betterment of the entire society. For example, in case of medical ethics, if a doctor saves the patient who is a terrorist, so it is for the betterment of the entire society, because then the terrorist will be made to come in front of the court of law, and the justice will be done. Society will get to know that the legal system is working properly, and it will build the trust of the society on the legal system. Also, as a civilized society, we have the right and the responsibility to ensure that justice is not arbitrary. Therefore, such kind of looking for the higher values and for the betterment of the entire society will provide us a way out of such kind of dilemmas in which ethics and morality offer different solutions. Now, next question is question number 3. It says, a right delayed is a right denied. In the light of the above statement, examine the ethical considerations in section 377 being a criminal offense. So, in order to address this question, we may start by giving the definition of section 377. It says, section 377 of IPC criminalizes unnatural sex, thus denying LGBT community a right to full personhood. Also, we can also, if you know that who gave this statement, this is a very interesting statement. A right delayed is right denied. You can straightaway write the name of the person who gave this statement. If you go on the web and find out, then you will know exactly who gave this statement. So this is a task that I am giving it to you. You can find who said this famous statement. Now let's move on to the body part of the answer. In the body part, we can give different ethical arguments for or against the section 377. So in order to finally conclude, we will use these arguments and show that whether 377 is ethically correct or ethically incorrect. Then now we move to ethical arguments in favor of section 377. There are different ethical angles involved. For example, the individual privacy and the right to life. The right to life has been made a fundamental right, and and it is the right of each and every person to live his or her life in the way that he or she wants. Therefore, criminalizing the personal acts of certain people based on the sexual orientation is intruding their individual privacy and denying them the equal right to life and right to dignity. Then equality. Equality under Article 14, it says that Section 377 discriminates against a few people solely based on their sexual orientation, and this is denying them equal rights. Also, the LGBT community is persecuted and exploited in the name of Section 377. For example, any two persons of the same sex can be arrested on the basis of suspicion that they are homosexuals. Therefore, this leads to their persecution, exploitation. They have to keep their identity in secret, and this imparts their full development, their full cognitive and personality development. Next, there is the Mills harm principle. It says that any act can be prohibited by the state only if it causes harm to the others. Being offended by some act is not a harm, and that it cannot be made illegal. Then means and end approach. This is an interesting concept. We can say that the section 377 criminalizes homosexuality in order to meet some ends. For example, those ends can be maintaining of harmony and maintaining the harmony and preserving the structure of the society as it is. There are some fears that if section 377 is decriminalized, then the structure of the society as it exists today will be violated. Also, section 377 criminalizes the private act, and therefore it creates psychological stress on the individuals. It imparts, as I said earlier, it impedes their moral and personality development. On the other hand, there are some arguments which are in favor of maintaining section 377. These are the arguments of cultural relativism. It says that each culture is different, and the ethical rules of each culture is set by the people of that culture. We cannot just blindly imitate the other culture, in this case the West. Therefore, cultural relativism says that if some other country has made homosexuality legal, then India does not need to follow in its footsteps. Another important argument is that the public opinion is very important for building any ethical rule or any ethical principle. Every society has a political as well as moral structure, and the laws of that society are derived from this structure. So, if the public opinion changes in the future or at some point of time, then we can decriminalize section 377, but we should not go against the public opinion. Another argument is that Section 377 is purely hedonistic. It does not serve any other purpose apart from providing physical pleasure, and that pleasure is also not long lasting. It is instantaneous pleasure, and it is the pleasure of the flesh. Therefore, the homosexuality does not have a deeper meaning like procreation or the continuation of the human species, and thus it is not ethically correct. Also, there is another aspect of public good. It is said that the acts of homosexuality promotes sexually transmitted disease, for example, AIDS and other related diseases. Therefore, it is in the public interest to make such kind of acts a crime, because if such diseases like AIDS or other STDs, they are more in the society, then it is against the public good. Also, another last argument is that there is a natural pace of change of each and every society, and the change in the ethical principles of that society is a result of the change in the social structure. Therefore, when the time comes, homosexuality will be decriminalized as when the public opinion is in its favor. Now, now we have some international examples. You can write these examples to you can write these examples to in your question so that it gives some strength to your answer. For example, England removed this decriminalization of homosexuality act in 1960s. Ireland made this same-sex marriage legal in 2015. US Supreme Court has ruled that same-sex marriage is legal in 2015. Even Nepal has legalized homosexuality in 2007, and their new constitution gives them many rights to the LGBT community. Other countries, for example, France, UK, Canada, they have all decriminalized homosexuality. Therefore, we can cite these international examples and say if these countries, which are famous for their democracy, for their rights and equal rights of right to life and equality, and which treat their people with dignity, if these are doing such kind of things, then we can consider the criminalization of homosexuality again. Now, how can we conclude this answer? Because both the aspects, both the sides of the argument are strong, and the matter is also sub judice. So we have to take a balanced approach. We can say that homosexuality has some kind of problems. For example, AIDS and STDs and destroying the structure of the society. But if we observe the changes in the society in the current times, then heterosexuality also has such kind of problems. The transmission of sexually transmitted disease is because of having multiple sex partners. So, if heterosexuality can also have such kind of problems, and also the structure of the society is already changing because of the growth of the nuclear families. Now, both husband and wives are working, and the children are stay in the home. So, and the growth of nuclear families is already changing the structure of the society. And one more important argument is that the Indian culture is very strong. Indian culture is very robust. It has stood the test of time. Many cultures, many foreign cultures, foreign invaders, foreign rulers came to India, but the Indian culture did not got destroyed. It assimilated all the good things of these cultures and grew. It grew as a grew it as a universal culture. Therefore, the people who say that homosexuality will destroy Indian culture takes the Indian culture to be too weak. Such kind of arguments can be given. In the end, we can say that all social problems throughout the history has some arguments for and against them, but in the end, an open debate and discussion discussion only these two things led to the improvement of the ethical standards of the society, and therefore in the end we can conclude that it is time that we may consider the discussion on this topic, so that the betterment of the society is reached and the rights of all the individuals are ensured. This is one of the possible conclusions. As conclusion and introduction is subjective, you can write any other conclusion that you feel like, or that you can write an innovative kind of conclusion depending on your thinking. Now moving on to question number 4. It says a child miseducated is a child lost. Examine this statement from the point of view of society's ethical responsibility towards the children. This is a very interesting question, and we can attempt this question by starting with the definition of what is education. Also, if you know which great personality has given this statement, a child miseducated is a child lost, then you can straight away write the name of the personality. John F. Kennedy was the person who gave this statement. So, we can start by writing what is the meaning of education in a few lines, so that we can go into the importance of education for children and what is the meaning of miseducation. Then we will move on to what is the ethical responsibility of the society towards the children, and then we will draw a conclusion from all the above points we have written. The concept of education is best understood by understanding the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi. He said that by education I mean all round drawing out of the best in the child and the man body, mind and spirit. Literacy is not the end of education and not even the beginning. Gandhiji truly believed that the education system should deal with the head, heart and hand of, that is, the academic education, the moral education and the physical or the skill oriented education. He was not in favor of just reading, writing and arithmetic. Therefore, Gandhiji's concept of education was truly holistic. We can also say that true education means that providing the student with the academic education, the moral education, and the physical and skill oriented education, so that he or she is able to live a good life in the society in the future, and also they can make the society a better place for them and for everybody. So, we can also write the importance of education for children. Research has proved that cognitive development of the child is most prominent in the early years, especially less than 6 to 7 years of age. So, primary education is the most important thing for development of the cognitive abilities of the child. And similarly, moral education is most important in adolescence phase. This is the time when the child is facing a lot of dilemmas of what is right and what is wrong to do. Therefore, the secondary education is more important in developing the moral abilities and moral understanding of the child. These two things, if developed properly at an early age, will stay with the child throughout their life, and they will make them a better human being that will be able to contribute more effectively to the society. Next, we should move on. What is miseducation? Miseducation, because the question is asking a child miseducated is a child lost. So we have to specify what is miseducation. The miseducation includes different types. For example, incomplete education, unidimensional education, only educating the child in one field, either in academic field or in physical field or in moral field. A unidimensional and selective education is miseducation. It does not help the child to develop a holistic concept. Moreover, selfish education, the education which is solely focused on the self-interest of the child and teaches the child to only look for himself or herself and not for the entire society. is not a true education. On the same lines, if the education does not teach the child to care for the environment, to care for the ecology, other animals and other plants, and therefore, and this education is not a complete education. Next, if we do not provide freedom to the child, then also it is not a complete education, because then the child will not be able to explore different aspects of their own personality, and the personality development of the child will be impeded. Therefore, such kind of education which does not provide freedom, for example, regimented kind of education, more disciplined oriented kind of education, punishment oriented kind of education, this is not a complete education. The next and the most important is exclusion. Creating an environment in which the child feels excluded is not true education. The, the child should be integrated with the society so that they understand the meaning of living as a social being, so that they are able to contribute to the society in the future. Therefore, therefore, creating an exclusive environment for the child is not true education. For example, in the schools, if there are some cases in which the teacher accidentally or intentionally creates a feeling in the child that they are not able to perform. This creates a kind of inferiority complex in the child, and thus it impedes the development of the child in the long run. Therefore, such kind of education should be called a miseducation. And this kind of education, once given in the early stage, leads to impeding the development throughout the life. So, if a child is miseducated, then he or she is lost to the society. The society will not be able to reap the benefits of the abilities of the child. Then we move to the ethical responsibility of the society towards the child. The ethical responsibility of the society is to provide a holistic education to the children, which includes all the three aspects of the education. The society should also provide a safe and moral environment for the child to grow, as the child learns by seeing the activities of the adults. Therefore, the society has to create such an environment where the child feels safe and sees moral actions being performed by the adults. That is the only way the child will have a moral education. Also, the society must have empathy and compassion for the child. If a child does something wrong, then our attitude should be to reform, to understand and reform the behavior of the child, and not to punish the child, because punishment will not lead to a sustained change in the behavior or the attitude of the child. Also, our responsibility is to bring out the best in the child. There are different kind of intelligence. For example, academic intelligence, musical intelligence, artistic intelligence. If a child is good at some activity, then the responsibility of the society is to bring the best out of the child in that activity. Therefore, this is the ethical responsibility of the society, which should be carried out to the fullest. Now, we have to conclude this question. So, what can we say? We can write some innovative ideas, like, for example, aptitude and attitude. A child who is having aptitude and attitude is more preferable than the child who has only aptitude. Therefore, a holistic education is must, and we have as a society have also realized that this is most important, and our different actions and legislations, for example, the Right to Education Act, Article 21A of the Constitution, the Directive Principles of State Policy, Article 45, the Khelo India schemes, and many other schemes, they they are aimed towards providing a holistic education and bringing out the best in the children. So we can conclude that we have realized the importance of holistic education. We are doing many things in that direction, but much more needs to be done. and our understanding of a holistic education needs to become constantly updated. Okay, this is all for question number 4. Next question is question number 5. It says that tolerance is considered to be a virtue. Can we say that tolerance is a virtue to be practiced in all situations? Or there can be cases where becoming intolerant is acceptable? Elucidate by taking examples of recent protests against films, arts, and literature. This is a very interesting question in the sense that it involves a very critical examination of the word tolerance. In which cases it is acceptable to become a tolerant and in which cases it is not acceptable. So, starting with the answer, we can address this question by giving the definition of the word tolerance itself. It means the ability of a person to not be perturbed or agitated by the views, beliefs, or actions which are contradictory to his or her own belief. So, tolerance is actually a golden mean between absolute prohibition and complete acceptance. Prohibition is completely banning one particular thing which is contradictory to one's own belief. For example, if uh, if a society feels that eating non-vegetarian is bad, then it might prohibit non-vegetarian completely. But on the other side of the scale is complete acceptance. Complete acceptance is done when there is no discussion or debate about the contradictory views and they are admitted as it is. Small children and gullible persons who do have weak moral understanding tend to be more accepting than the others. Therefore, both the situations are bad. Prohibition and acceptance both are considered to be a vice, and by the Aristotle, they are considered vice because in those situations, debate and discussion does not take place in the society, and the best of the ideas does not come to light. So, another thing is that tolerance is a virtue because Gandhiji had said some interesting things in this regard. Gandhiji has said that there is a difference between being a seeker and being a god. A seeker is one who understands that his or her capacity for understanding and retention of knowledge is limited. He knows that his own knowledge is imperfect. Therefore, a seeker is always in search of new knowledge so that they can improve upon their own knowledge, so that they can refine their own knowledge. Therefore, a seeker is always tolerant. He is tolerant of the new views, of the contradictory views. And the idea is that when debate happens between two contradictory views, then the best of the ideas will come about. At the other end is the God, who is all knowing and all pervasive. He is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. So, there is no need for the God to indulge in some such kind of discussions because he knows everything. Therefore, Gandhiji says that human beings are mere mortals and they cannot be God. So, they will have to be seekers. Therefore, their constant efforts must be towards improving their own knowledge. So, now that we have proved that tolerance is a virtue, we have to also address the second part of the question, that when tolerance is not acceptable. Tolerance should not be acceptable when the means of providing the contradictory views is violent. For example, when people take law into their own hands uh, in order to give their own opinions, then it is not acceptable. We can we can write some recent examples of the films, arts, and literature in this regard. For example, the recent Padmavati issue, where a large number of people protested on the streets in a violent manner because they said that their beliefs have been offended. In case of art, the paintings of famous painters like M.F. Hussain have been banned because it says that people have been offended. Similarly, in case of literature, so we can write different examples from these three fields. There are other fields also when in which tolerance must not be a virtue. We should not tolerate things where dignity of the individual and the fundamental rights is not respected. We should not accept those cases where there is exploitation of the weak. In such cases, tolerance is not acceptable. For example, in case of corruption, in case of sexual harassment of the woman, in case of child labor, in case of eve teasing, these things should not be accepted in the society. There should not be any tolerance in the society for these things. For example, today there are some sections of the society which say that corruption or tax evasion for that matter is acceptable. Why? Why is this thing in the society? Such kind of tolerance is not good for the betterment of the society. Therefore, tolerance should not be a virtue in situations where there is violence, where the dignity and fundamental rights of the individual is not respected, where there is exploitation of the weak, and which is not good for the betterment of the society as a whole. Therefore, we have to conclude this question on a very balanced note that that the entire thing of tolerance or intolerance should be governed by the principle of the betterment of the society. We should understand what is the reason behind a new concept. We should indulge in debate and discussion so that new ideas come about, so that our own knowledge gets refined, so that we as a seeker can move one step further in the domain of knowledge. Therefore, and there is one interesting concept that Gandhiji said. He said that we should not limit ourselves just to tolerance. We should move beyond the tolerance. Why? Because Gandhiji said that he does not like the word tolerance but could not think of a better one. He believed that tolerance is assuming that the views of the others are inferior and you choose not to oppose those views just to appear that you are tolerant. But in this case, there is no debate, there is no discussion, there is no appreciation of the contradictory views, there is no respect that you give to the opposite contradictory views. So therefore, Gandhiji says that we should move towards the concept of ahimsa. He says that ahimsa or ahimsa teaches us that we should give the same respect to the other's views as we give to our own. We should understand the reasons behind those views. We should indulge in debate and discussion, and we should come out with the best of the two worlds. We should come out with the best of the knowledge, and that is moving beyond the tolerance. That is moving towards pure ahimsa. So, we can end the question in this way, or you can give another suitable conclusion which you feel like. As I have already said, that conclusion and introduction are subjective, so you can go about with any of the things that you feel. Okay. Now moving to the next question, it is a case study. It's a very interesting case study, and you can see this question on your screens. I will let you read the question, and I will give you some time to read the question. Okay, now moving forward to the solution. The first thing is that you should explain the case study in 1 or 2 lines so that the examiner comes to know that you have understood the question and you have also understood the ethical implications involved in the question. Then we can move on to the stakeholders involved. The stakeholders involved in this case are you, the SDM of that area, the farmers who are protesting for their grievances to be heard, the district collector who escapes from his responsibility, and the police, who, who are responsible for maintaining the law and order in the area. Then, the ethical issues involved in the case are professional ethics versus personal safety. The professional ethics in this case includes duty, dedication to public service, empathy and compassion towards the weaker section of the society, and integrity. Another ethical angle involved is courage versus pragmatism. Courage means that you take the situation head on, you take action, you take initiative without any fear for your own safety. But the pragmatic approach tells us that we should also have some consideration for our own safety, as our moral responsibility is not for the organization or the institution, but our moral responsibility is also towards us, ourselves, towards our family. So we have this kind of ethical dilemma is there in this question. So now what are the options available for you? The options available to you are: first is leave the scene along with the DC. The positive and negatives of this option is that if you leave the scene, then you will be safe, your life will be saved, and you have chosen the pragmatic, the personal safety option. But the negative is that the farmers will not find anybody to resolve their grievances, and they might get more agitated, and it is also unethical for you to leave your duty and run away. This is called dereliction of duty. So this option is not suitable for you, as it is unethical and also it impedes the assurance of good governance in that area. The next option is to persuade the district collector to handle the situation. In this option, you will assist the district collector with all your capacity to solve the problem, to handle the situation to the best of their abilities. This is a good option, as district collector is the authority in this situation and he has more awareness about the ground realities. He is better suited to provide good solutions to the problem. Also, the farmers want to meet the district collector himself, and they are agitating because they were not able to secure a meeting with the district collector. This is mentioned in the question. So, if you are able to persuade district collector to handle the situation, then this is a good option. Then, but the negative is that the district collector might be emotionally charged. This can be inferred from the point that his first reaction to the situation was that they should leave the premise from the back door. It shows that the district collector wants to escape from the situation. He knows or he feels that there is no immediate solution to the problem, and also this might say that the district collector is not interested in solving this problem as of now. So district collector might be emotionally charged. Even if you persuade him to handle the situation, then he might go and meet with the crowd, but the crowd are agitating because they did not get time to meet the collector. So that might lead to the escalation of situation. This is the escalation of situation. This is one of the possibilities. Now there is another option for you. Option number 3. It says that you stay in the office till the police arrives and take action only when you feel that it is safe for you to act. This is also one of the pragmatic options. The positive in this option is that there will be safety. You will ensure your personal safety, and also at the same time you will be able to resolve the grievances of the farmers. But there is a negative possibility in this case, that by the time the police comes, the crowd may get more agitated and they may lead and it may adopt even violent means. They may want to destroy the public property, and it can also lead to emotional escalation of the situation. There can be loss of lives and property. And moreover, option number 3 is not suitable and for the officer, as an officer is expected to show leadership initiatives, to show the officer is expected to show abilities to take initiative. The officer should take moral responsibility, he should be action oriented, and he should have the dedication to public service as the primary goal. So there are also some lacunas in this option. Now, option number 4. Option number 4 says that you meet with the farmer, irrespective of whether your district collector runs away. Then, there are some positives of this option, like the anger of the crowd will subside, seeing that someone from the authority has come to meet them. And also, you might also be able to provide some solutions to the problem. So, this is a good step, but there are some negatives also. Before understanding, before analyzing the negatives, we should understand that the farmers wanted to meet the district collector because he is the authority figure in that situation, and he is the only person who can provide the solutions, who can implement those solutions. Therefore, you are not the authority persons in this situation. So, if you go and meet, there is a possibility that the farmers get more agitated because they may feel that district collector is avoiding meeting them and he is sending some new person, some junior person to meet them who is not in a position to give them positive solutions. Now, this is the analysis of all the options presented to you. Now, the question asks, what will be your course of action and why? This is the most important part of the question, the course of action. So, in the next slide, we will discuss the course of action. So, now moving towards the course of action, our first course of action will be to persuade the DC to handle the situation because he is the authority figure in this situation, and moreover the farmers also wanted to meet the DC. So if he agrees to meet with the farmers, then we will assist the DC in all our capacity to handle the situation, to deal with the problems of the farmers. In these two things, we will have to use emotional intelligence. We will have to understand these feelings of the district collector and why he is trying to escape the situation. We will have to make him realize about his responsibility, and we will have to make sure that he realizes that he should be dedicated to the public service. And this, if we persuade the DC and assist the DC in taking care of the situation, this also shows that we respect our authority figures, we respect the rules, and we do not like to surpass the authority. On the other hand, if the DC is not persuaded by us, then our next course of action will be to call the police and inform them about the situation and ask them to report to the ground as soon as possible. Then your course of action should be to set some ground rules for the negotiation with the farmers. You should convey a meaning. You should convey a message to the farmers that you are willing to talk, but only on the grounds that violence will not be done and law will not be taken into their own hands. You set the ground rules that you will meet with few representatives of the farmer and not the crowd at once. And you do this from such a position where your own safety is guaranteed, but you are also visible enough to the farmers. Then the next course of action will be to take the moral responsibility. Instead of giving excuses to the farmers that their problems were not solved because of some A or B reasons, you first should take the responsibility that and accept the failure of the administration to solve the problems of the farmers. Then you should talk less and listen more. You should involve the farmers in providing solutions to the problem. You should understand why the farmers are agitating, because they know more than you about the problem. So they will be able to tell you better about the integrities of the problem. Then the next course of action will be to give a positive assurance to the farmers. This will enable you to pass on a message that you are sincere in your efforts towards resolving this dispute. This positive assurance should be in a time bound manner. You should set some guidelines, some times, so that in this amount of time you will be able to solve this problem. While doing all this, while talking to the farmers, you will have to display some ethical qualities. You will have to display integrity. You will have to display commitment towards public service. You will have to display that you are committed towards solving the problems of the farmer. You will have to make the farmers believe that you are not here just for the sake of showing some administrative work, but you are here to solve the problems. You will have to use emotional intelligence to connect with the farmers. You will, if the farmers are emotionally charged, then you will have to take care that your anger does not go up. You have to use emotional intelligence on yourself. Next, you should be aware about the policies of the government regarding the farmers, and you should also try to make the farmers understand about what policies are running, what schemes are running. It may be possible that the solution to this problem might be in one of the schemes that is being run by the government. You will have to show empathy, you will have to show compassion. This is the only way you can resolve this dilemma. Once the farmer gets to understand that you are here to provide solution, once the farmers believe you, once the farmers trust you, then they will drop all their anger and they will listen to your solutions. Now, when after the farmers are left, what you can do is you can prepare a report, you can prepare a detailed report, and you can write all your observations in that report. For example, the conduct of the district collector in trying to run away from the problem. This is one of the important peripheral issue that you can write in your report. The next is the inability of the police to understand the movement of the farmers. This kind of information is not collected by the police. Such a large event was happening and the police was unaware of this event. So this shows the lack of the information collecting capacities of the police, and the deployment time of the police was also very high. This is another peripheral issue. It was written in the question that the police will take a long amount of time before they reaches your destination. So this is an issue. If some other event happens in the future, then also the police will be deployed at the deployment time will be large, and this will create problem. Other important things that you can mention in your report is that you can mention the problems of the farmers. You can mention the schemes which are running to solve these problems of the farmers, and also you can also mention the implementation part of those schemes. You can mention how effectively those schemes are being implemented on the ground. You can go and visit on the ground. You can take reports, you can take data, you can talk to the farmers, and you can write the quotes of the farmers directly into your report. So this is the peripheral issues that you have to deal with in the case studies. Many times it happens that we deal just with the case study but not with the peripheral issue. So it is important that you deal with the peripheral issue. The next and the last thing that you will do in this is to monitor the implementation of the assurances that you have given to the farmers, because you have given a time bound assurance, so you will have to monitor these assurances. You will have to make sure that things are implemented on the ground, and such and the farmers do not get a chance to agitate in the future. So this is a complete understanding and course of action which you can follow in this case study. It is a good it is a good option to draw such kind of diagrams when the course of action is very complicated. You can also attempt to drawing such kind of flow charts in the exam if you have less time left with you and if the course of action is very complicated. That is all for the case question number 6. Next question we will move to question number 7. Now next move to the question number 7. Question number 7 is also a case study. This case study will be displayed on your screen. I will give you some time to read this case study. Okay, this case study is about a doctor who has been presented with a patient who is in a critical condition. He has been found unconscious in the river, and when the doctor tries to proceed on the patient and tries to save the lives of the patient, he finds a tattoo of "Do not resuscitate" on his chest. This means that the patient has declared via the tattoo that if he is found in a critical condition, then he should not be brought back to life. Now, the doctor is in a dilemma of what to do, whether to respect the will of the patient or to perform his duty, that is, to save the life of the patient. So, the stakeholders involved in this case are you, the doctor, the patient who has allegedly tried to commit suicide, the family of the patient who will be affected by any decision you take in the operation theatre, and the society at large. Because your decision may set a precedent for other doctors in such a case. Other doctors can use your example to act in such kind of situations. So this is a very important case for the society. The ethical principles involved in this case. The ethical principles involved are medical ethics versus right to die. The medical ethics says that the Hippocratic oath which the doctors have taken must be respected, that the doctors must save the life of the people in no matter what the circumstances. But there is a right to die, that it says that the life of the individual is their own property and the individual can decide upon on the right to live or to right to die. Then another ethical principle is professional ethics versus personal morals. Professional ethics might dictate that the doctor should save the life of the patient, but personally the doctor may feel that personally the doctor may have a moral understanding that the patient has the right to die. He can die if he chooses to do so, and the doctor should not revive the patient back. So these are some ethical principles involved. The options available to you are: first is that you do nothing in the situation and let the patient die. As it is mentioned that the patient is in a critical condition, so if you do nothing, then surely the patient will die. But there are some positive and negative of these options. The positive is that the dying wish of the patient is honored, and you are not involved in actively killing the patient, so there is no blame on you. You can always say that the patient was too critical for you and he died in the operation theatre. But this is not good for the society, because this will set a precedent that such kind of patients will be left to die. And moreover, it might be the case that the patient did not actually commit suicide. It might have been the case of murder, and the murderer might have made it to look like a case of attempted suicide. Another aspect is that at the last moment before dying or before becoming unconscious, the patient might have changed his mind. He might have feel that he has committed a mistake while doing this kind of activity. So that might have happened. He might have changed his mind at the last moment. Then the option number 2 is to clarify the rules from the administration and to seek a proper guideline of how to act in this situation. You go to the administrative staff and you seek the proper rules. This has some positive is that you will be proceeding according to the rule and nobody will be able to uh, pinpoint a fault on you. You will not be responsible for whatever happens. But it is not ethically correct. It is not morally correct also. There is a guideline of the Supreme Court, the Good Samaritan guidelines, that says that the doctor has the responsibility, the first and foremost responsibility to treat the patient, and all the administrative and legal proceedings can go afterwards. Also, if you waste time in clarifying the things from the administration, then this might lead to wastage of precious time for the patient, and this might lead to the death of the patient. So the third option is that you save the patient irrespective of the tattoo, and you do all you can to revive the patient. This has some positive because it is your duty. You are acting as per your duty. You are acting in a utilitarian manner because this is good for the entire society, as in the future if some other person comes in such a situation, then other doctors will also do the same. So as a society it will be beneficial. Moreover, the family of the patient will be happy to see the patient alive again. And it also might be the case that the patient, after coming back to life, he might be very happy. So this is a utilitarian kind of step. The negative in this case is that the patient might really wanted to have died, and if you revive the patient, he might be depressed or he might suffer some emotional trauma. So he might commit this kind of activity again in the future. So this is the negative point of this option. Now, what will you do? It is asked in the question, what will you do? So, as per ethics, the correct course of action will be to save the patient irrespective of the tattoo, because this is your duty, and this is as per the Hippocratic Oath. This is as per the principle of beneficence. Then, after saving the patient, you ask the hospital administration to frame a proper guideline for such kinds of cases. For example, Good Samaritan guidelines. Then, after that, when the patient comes back to life, when the patient is revived, you find out why the patient has committed this kind of activity, whether he was genuinely committing suicide or it was a case of attempted murder. What was the reason? And if the patient committed suicide, then you try to understand why the patient took this extreme step. You as a doctor, you provide all the medical and psychological help and psychological counseling to the patient so as to get him out of the depression. This is your responsibility as a doctor. Not just saving the patient and letting him off is not the complete analysis of this case. You will have to go to the end to understand the reasons why the patient tried to commit such kind of activity. And in the long run, you also, as a good human being, as a good medical professional, you must try to keep in contact with the patient. You should try to understand whether there is an improvement in the psychological state of the patient or not. This is the complete analysis of the case. You have to understand the peripheral issues. You have to think in the long term, not in the short term. And when you have a complete holistic understanding, you have to provide a holistic course of action for you to follow. So that's it, guys. This was the discussion for question number 7, and with this the entire paper has been discussed. I hope that you would have liked this discussion. Thank you.